Episode Revenant is here, and with it, the biggest stasis-focused sandbox we've ever seen. I'm Juggernaut, and in this video, I'll be showing you 5 of the most powerful exotics in Episode Revenant. Destiny has a lot of exotics that are really good, but only a few when you combine them with the artifact become, dare I say, meta? Starting off with a weapon that will surprise no one, a Lathanim. This exotic GL is one of only 2 primary ammo grenade launchers in the game, and there are 3 things that make it insanely strong. First, let's start off with the exotic perk Harvester Spike, which reads that defeating an enemy creates a vestige at their location. Collecting vestiges fills a meter, and you can activate it to spawn special ammo at 50%, or heavy ammo at 100%. So basically, as long as there are enemies to kill, you have a never-ending way to generate ammo for you and your fire team. This is incredibly strong in solo and team content, since it gives you free heavy and special ammo for just shooting the gun. Second, look at how many artifact perks synergize with a Lathanim. Without going into every perk, a Lathanim can give you frost armor, increase your reload, increase your mobility, weaken bosses and champions, give you devour when you kill those bosses and champs, and stun overloads. Though, that last one I don't recommend. Maybe it's just me, but overloads are really hard to hit with GLs. And lastly, there's the build synergy. A Lathanim is stasis, which means it's ideal for your prismatic builds. Meta builds like Consecration Titan, Getaway Artist Warlock, and Liar's Handshake Hunter easily rack up the light damage using just abilities, but they only have a few options to fill the darkness meter. A Lathanim quickly fills up the darkness meter and, unlike other top options like Lost Signal, it creates ammo for free. Moving on to number 2, Choir of One. But Jug, why would we use Choir when it just got nerfed and auto rifles aren't featured in the artifact? That's true. It did get a nerf, but maybe not how you think. At the start of Revenant, Bungie reduced the base reserve ammo from 250 to 200 and the max reserves from 384 to 300. They also reduced the damage when you fire at point blank range. But guys, Choir is still nasty. And as for not being featured in the artifact, take a look at these 3 perks. First, Debilitating Wave causes our finishers to emit a damaging wave, and when we boost the perk with a potion, finishers apply the Weaken debuff if we have a Void super equipped. Killing weakened enemies then activates Power from Pain and gives us Devour. Lastly, we add a way to make Void breaches like Facet of Awakening on Prismatic, and this activates Supernova from the artifact, which causes our next source of void damage to emit a weakening pulse. Now in the background gameplay, I'm using a Choir with the Destabilizing Rounds catalyst because the purple explosions are just glorious. Exotic number 3 almost didn't make the list, but in the end it would not, nay, could not be denied. Wicked Implement. I am not a big fan of scout rifles in general, but Wicked Implement has 2 major advantages this episode. But before we talk about them, let's talk about the base exotic. Wicked Implement has the exotic perk Creeping Attrition, which reads that rapid precision hits slow combatants. And the intrinsic Tithing Harvest creates a stasis shard that tracks to you and refills your mag when Creeping Attrition is active, and you get kills or break stasis crystals. And if you complete the catalyst, you also gain the perk Headstone. So what makes it so good this episode? First, scout rifles are overcharged this episode, which means they always get an extra 25% damage boost in overcharged activities, which is great because shooting an unbuffed scout rifle feels like slapping your brother with a spaghetti noodle. Second, Wicked Implement is stasis, which means it benefits from these 7 artifact perks. And these synergies are crazy. One with Frost gives us increased reload speed and stability when we have Frost armor, which we can get by landing precision hits with the Wind Chill. Shattering Stasis Crystal sends out freezing shards from Crystallized Converter, and all this time we're generating stasis shards thanks to our exotic, which gives us class ability from Serve Cold, and Crystalline Converter allows us to create more stasis crystals with our powered melee. And since we're freezing enemies, Brain Freeze will surround frozen enemies with a, quote, chilling fog. I don't actually have footage of this because I haven't unlocked that perk yet, but once I do, it's gonna be glued to my Rhymecoat Warlock build. I imagine it also goes hard on something like a Titan Lance Cap or the new Hunter Mask of Fealty, but I haven't tested those. Our next weapon, I've never seen anyone use in PvE, but it has a cult following and Bungie just gave it a crazy buff. The Fighting Lion. Yep, I couldn't believe it either, until I learned the true power of this exotic. In case you don't know, the Lion's exotic perk is Thin the Herd and reads, direct hits do more damage to combatant shields, dealing damage increases reload speed, rapid final blows against grenade damage combatants refill the magazine. And that's fine. But in Revenant, Bungie gave this GL the ability to create a, quote, volatile burst on direct hits. Just like Choir of One, this will synergize with Supernova and Power from Pain, meaning that we can give ourselves Devour by picking up a Void Breach, doing damage to the weakened enemy, and then killing it. But that's not actually the best way to use it. I threw this weapon onto my favorite Freezy Warlock build, and the artifact perk crystallized autoloader and hopped into Onslaught. Fair warning, the gameplay you're about to see is incredibly addicting. Freeze an enemy, then shoot Fighting Lion and watch that enemy explode in a freezing, volatile explosion. And thanks to our handy artifact perk, this will send freezing shards that will freeze more opponents, and then it's just rinse and repeat. And because it's a grenade launcher, it will also benefit from these 3 artifact perks. Seriously, if you want an incredibly powerful and fun build in any activity with ads, I highly recommend this one, and maybe one more. Our last exotic weapon also just received a buff, and it may be the most underrated weapon on this list. Exderis, aka the Moth Gun, is about to rise from meme to meta. Let me tell you how. The exotic perk Corrupted Nucleosynthesis reads that dealing or taking sustained damage enrages the weapon, giving it more damage and making it fire faster. But its second perk, Loyal Moths, is where things really get interesting. It used to generate a moth on kills, but in Revenant, Bungie changed this perk to create a moth not on kills, but on 2 direct hits. So you can shoot a chunky major and have moths popping out every few seconds. On top of that, Bungie also gave it a 33% damage buff, adjusted its recoil, added +5 ammo reserves, and reduced the cooldown between moth spawns from 4 to 3 seconds. When you add in the GL perks from the artifact, you start seeing why I'm so high on this weapon. But there's one perk hidden in the artifact that you need to know about because it will dramatically increase your ability regen: Trace Evidence. This perk reads that killing jolted or blinded enemies will generate ionic traces. And in case you don't know, collecting ionic traces gives you 12.5% of your grenade and melee, and 15% of your class ability. So while we're shooting our GL, our moths are going out and blinding enemies, we're generating ionic traces by killing blinded enemies, we're weakening bosses and champions, and when we kill them, we're also giving ourselves Devour. And all of this comes along with doing 25% extra damage in every activity where Overcharge is active. Now in the background gameplay, I'm running this build with Mothkeeper's Wrap, so I actually get a second moth with every grenade and on the hits from Exderis. Those are my top 5 weapons. Let me know in the comments what other weapons you think belong on this list. And thanks for watching till the end. GG's, gamers.